There is a land far away in the heart of Asia, an ancient land whose history is lost in the mists of time, a mystical land called India. Home to millennia-old cultures, colors and spices, knowledge, spirituality and ancient traditions, great people and damn good whiskies.
I know India isn't exactly the first country that comes to your mind when we think about whiskey. Yet, Indian Aquavit is literally conquering the world and the hearts of the enthusiasts. Now let's head out to the club. I have lots of delicious things to show you that you absolutely must know about. Let's see what Rudy has prepared for us. These are some of the most famous brands of authentic single malts from India. And no, I will not mention the blends in this video. Before I make the presentations, a few words about the history of whiskey in India. Whiskey culture, of course, spread during British colonial rule. Apparently it was Glenfiddich, the first Scotch whiskey who landed in India, peacefully conquering it. What was produced on Indian soil at that time was not a classic malt whiskey. Given the scarcity of grain and the extreme poverty, mainly fermented molasses was distilled mixed with other things. Pioneering the production of whiskey from malted grains was the Amrut distillery, which began buying barley from farmers from the northern regions of Punjab and Rajasthan. Although the production of blended whiskey yielded more in economic terms, as single malt had not yet conquered the hearts of the population, Amrut decided to write history by producing the first Indian single malt whiskey. It was introduced in 2004 in Glasgow, and as we say, and the rest is history. Since that fateful moment, more and more distilleries began to produce single malt, one better than the other, I assure you. Moreover, India is the country with the largest consumption of whiskey worldwide, with an impressive industry in a sector that is constantly growing. The story, of course, is much more complex, and you will certainly excuse me if I do not go too much into detail. As mentioned, the whiskies featured in this video were produced reflecting Scottish tradition and procedure, each distilled solely in its own distillery from malted barley in copper pot stills, aged in oak casks for at least 3 years, and all on Indian soil, thus making them authentic Indian single malt whiskies in their own right. In addition, Indian barley from the Himalayan regions is different from Scottish barley and gives the whiskies a unique character. Another key factor to consider is the climate of the country, which greatly accelerates maturation. They literally explode with flavor. Now let's get to the point. We begin our journey in the deep south of India. Here in the state of Karnataka, in bustling Bangalore, is the Amrut distillery, the first, as already mentioned, to produce an authentic single malt, and in the hands of the Jagdale family for 3 generations. The malt always comes from northern India, while the distillation and cask storage takes place in Bengaluru. Amrut was my first Indian whiskey, the peated version to be precise. This one here also available in cask strength. As I always like to say, it was love at first sip. This is the great classic from Amrut, the one who wrote history. Also available in the more eventful variation with the beauty of 61.8% ABV. 2 other editions from the core range, very interesting, accompanied by a note of orange and spices. While here we have one of the limited editions, with a stratospheric sherry cask finish. The prices are more than reasonable, especially for the core editions. Basically, if you want to venture into the world of Indian whiskies, Amrut is the first stop you must make. Me personally am a big fan of it. By the way, Amrut in Sanskrit means elixir of life or nectar of life. They couldn't have chosen a more suitable name, I would say. A few years ago, the son of a liquor store chain owner with a passion for good whiskey ventured out into the world in search of knowledge and insight. This man had a vision. to create his own single malt, reflecting the flavors, smells and spirit of India. And guess what? He succeeded. His name, Paul P. John. With the help and expertise of master blender Michael D'Souza, something unique was created. John Distilleries is also based in Bengaluru, but the single malt distillery is located in Goa. The location was chosen due to its microclimate and water quality. Also, according to Paul's words, Goa has a special place in his heart, thanks in part to the warmth and hospitality of the people. A perfect place to build a distillery there, in short. As in the case of Amrut, 6-row barley, typical in the Himalayan areas, is used. Maturation takes place mainly in American oak and ex-sherry casks. Here we have two editions. Nirvana, a light summery whiskey. At 30% ABV, it is more suitable for people who prefer a mellower taste. A whiskey nevertheless very rich, with a wide range of flavors and aromas. If, however, you prefer that smoky note, not all intrusive, there's the Bold edition. The peat is imported from Scotland, of course. For both peat and classic editions, there is also a cask strength version. The prices are absolutely phenomenal and the availability is very high, even its popularity. My first Paul John was the Peated Selection Cask edition, uncorked a few years ago with my friend Philip. Phil? Well, what can I say? I'm also a big fan of Paul John's whiskey as well, and I can confirm that they have absolutely succeeded in their intent to encapsulate the spirit of India in their whiskies. We conclude our journey by moving north in the state of Haryana. Here in the ancient city of Kurukshetra, in the mythical land of the Mahabharata, we find Kamet, a project of Madhya Beverages in collaboration with Peak Spirits and the Piccadilly Distillery, and with the valuable contribution of master blender Nancy Fraley. Kamet is one of the highest peaks in the Indian Himalayas, on the slopes of which stretch verdant fertile plains. This has made possible the development of thriving agriculture since the dawn of time. One of the indigenous grains grown is the aforementioned 6-row barley, typical of the area. The barrel selection is quite interesting. Ex-bourbon American oak, ex-wine French oak and ex-sherry, both PX and Oloroso. Price less than 50 euros. Now for a personal observation. While browsing Kamet's website, I noticed that they are quite connected to their history and culture, even mentioning the origins of distilling in India. As you may have deduced, I'm a big fan of history and mythology, and if the lore of a whiskey is presented as it is in the case of Kamet here, my appreciation increases. With a rich history of tradition and passion behind it, a simple glass of whiskey becomes something much more greater. I think I should make a video about it. By the way, I got so passionate about the history of this whiskey that I even forgot to taste it. Excuse me for a minute. Well, we have come to the end. I know that our beloved India has a lot to offer in terms of history, culture and whiskey, but we will talk about that in another video. A little preview. The usual warm thanks goes to Rudy for providing the location and of course for remediating the whiskies. I remind you that the invitation to drop by here at the Claymore Whiskey Club in Innsbruck is still valid, and as usual, opening hours and the address down in the description. And another big thank you to my wife for filming and the beautiful decoration. Thank you for watching and wish you all the best. Namaste.